It's the end of the Virginia legislative session. But what really happened? How will the laws that are going to be signed will impact your community? And who's fighting for you? It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and today we have with us in studio Delegate Angelia Williams-Graves, that represents this area here in Norfolk, to give us a recap of the 2023 Virginia General Assembly legislative session. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back. It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We're so happy to have you join us here on this Sunday, as you always do, as we broadcast live on the Norfolk State University campus, the largest and biggest and baddest HBCU in the Commonwealth and the country. Also from the legendary station of WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. You know, without you, the listeners, we couldn't do what we do. But not only that, but we can't do what we do without our producer, who's always in the studio, keeping us right and tight on the wheels of steel. Marvin Folks, also known as DJ Scandalous. You can hear him every day on the station from 2 to 6 p.m., also on Saturday. And yes, I call him the hardest working man in radio because he's live here in studio with me on Sunday. So again, without him and without you, we couldn't do what we do. Listen, those of you that have been listening to us and supporting us, you know that every January and February, we do our Legislative General Assembly session show. We talk about what's going on in the legislature. Not just that, but we also engage legislators, policymakers, movers and shakers in our community to inform us what's happening on Capitol Hill. Because when this show was conceived, I wanted to bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. And with us, we have in studio one of my very good friends, one of the champions here in the city of Norfolk, who's worked many years on the local level and state level. She is not a stranger to this institution and to many of you, but none other than Delegate Angelia Williams-Graves, representing the 90th District here in Norfolk. Delegate, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about being here.
Absolutely. Look, you know, I get geeked out when we talk about the session. You know, I'm a politics junkie. You know that. And listen, you've been involved on the local level, state level, and you've done a tremendous job representing the people, your constituency throughout. And I'm just thrilled to have you here because, you know, what a lot of the listeners don't know is that behind closed doors, in the ivory tower, as many people call it, in Richmond, a lot of things take place. And they have no idea what individuals like yourself that champion the causes of the people, the constituents, what you have to go through and do. So I'm excited to have you here. We're going to delve right into what took place in this session. But before we do that, I want to get your take, all right? So this session is done. 2023, it's in the book, signing die. Of course, there's a reconvene session coming up. We'll talk about it in just a moment, but give us your take. I know you're glad to be home and sleeping in your own bed, but give us your take on this session.
I'm glad to be home to get my hair done. But anyway, this session was very interesting. There was a lot of legislation. There were a lot of things that delegates and senators put in to legislation on gun violence prevention, on women's reproductive health measures, things to just help keep our community safe, things. And so we did a lot of work, but I will tell you that it was a little disappointing that every day, or just about every day I woke up in Richmond, someone had gotten shot or killed, right? And as a matter of fact, one afternoon when the Public Safety Subcommittee was meeting, someone actually got shot on Broad Street. Yet every single gun safety bill, with the exception of one that allowed for a tax credit, got killed. I know, right? Got killed in subcommittee. And I understand people's like right to bear weapons and bear arms and all of that. But at some point, we have to look at what is happening in our communities, and we have to take tangible steps to keep our communities safe. And so that for me was the biggest takeaway. The other big takeaway was on a woman's right to choose. And there were several bills that were introduced by legislators that weren't even docketed. And so they never got a fair hearing. So all of the people who claim that they are pro-life didn't get to stand up for their bills. They didn't get to go on the record. And some of this stuff was really crazy too. I mean, like the one that I have most in my mind is that you could use the HOV lane if you were pregnant.
What?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but those are the kinds of things that we saw that are really impactful to day-to-day life. And either they were dismissed, they were not docketed, or the bills were just straight up killed.
Wow. You know, when you talk about bills being killed in committees, I kind of want the audience to understand how that process works. So we remember the after-school special, you know.
Schoolhouse Rocks, yeah.
I'm just a bill, only a bill, sitting on Capitol Hill. You know, and it takes us through that process. But, you know, a little bit more in depth is that bills are entered, or what's called pre-filed, into the legislature. And then they go into what type of committee?
And then, well, once they're pre-filed, then they get filed, they get bill numbers. Once we edit them and all that, they get bill numbers. And then they go into what's called the Legislative Information System. And at that point in the House, it is up to the Speaker if they get assigned to if they get assigned to committees, and then the committee chair assigns them to a subcommittee if that is warranted. And the subcommittee is really where the work is done in terms of public input, delegates and lobbyists and people who are for and against speaking to the bill, giving information in support of the bill or against the bill. And the thing I think is most important for people to understand is not just that system, but if they folks don't really understand how things are weighted, right? So right now we have 52 members of the House of Delegates that are Republican and 48 members of the House of Delegates that are Democrat, makes 400 members. Right. So that means that the Republicans carry the majority. Well, when we say that trickles down to everything else. Wow. That trickles down to, let's say, a 7-3 majority on a subcommittee. All right, 7 members Republican, 3 members Democrat. And then to the committee, it could be 11-6, right? 11 members Republican, 6 members Democrat. Supermajorities, right? And so what happens is that regardless of what happens, the weight of who's in the majority trickles all the way down. It also trickles down when we have bills that we can't come to an agreement on and they go to conference and there are conferees. So that's members of the House and members of the Senate. So usually there's 3 on each bill. So then you have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. Guess how many signatures it takes to get that conference report accepted?
I think 2.
You got it. So it really, when you hear people say the Democrats want the majority, or the Democrats have the majority, or the Republicans have the majority, it's not really this power grab. But if you don't have the power, you can't get things done. And specifically for me and my community, it's difficult to get things done that are impactful because I'm more sympathetic to my community than other people are.
Absolutely. When you talk about your community, and I introduce you as a champion, you know, for your constituents. I see you at work. I see you behind the scenes of what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about the native district. You know, where does it encompass? who are the people that you represent?
I've got a majority minority district, and I describe it as a chunk of Norfolk and a little bit of Virginia Beach, right? Because just after you cross over the bridge on Virginia Beach Boulevard, coming up to Ingleside Road is about where my district starts. It goes into Norview. I have a little bit of Ocean View, and then it goes all the way down to the Virginia Beach Boulevard line, and then I've got Baker Road, a little bit of a split precinct on Baker Road. And so it's a lot of the folks that I represented when I was sitting on city council.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I talked about you started, this is not your first rodeo. Mm-mm. You really started on the ground. Mm-hmm. City council is on the ground. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, those our listeners know very well, my career in government relations, I started as a legislative assistant or chief of staff on the local level as a college student.
Oh, cool.
So understanding ordinances, understanding civic associations, and so forth. And I like to ask this question to state legislators that transition from the local side. Which one do you like the best?
Ooh, that's a good, tough question. So
I'll say this. I'll ask this. I don't want to get you into trouble, but what do you miss about the local level as opposed to the state level?
And that's probably precisely how I was going to answer your question. I miss the immediacy of being able to get things done on the local level because we are so not only are we close to the people, but we're close to the administration. We as a council hire the city manager. We as a council hire the city attorney. And then all of the people who work for the city manager, the department heads and things of that nature. Having also worked in the city for almost 10 years before running for public office, I understand that hierarchy and I have relationships with folks there. So it's easy to get things done. When you get to the state level, it's a little bit more bureaucracy because nobody works for us. Right. The governor doesn't work for me. I didn't hire him. I would have picked somebody else. I did not hire him, And so the state staff members don't, by any stretch, work for me as a legislator, right? And so you have to go through, it's a few more hoops and a few more legislative liaisons and all those kinds of things. But it does require you to exercise your relationship building skills because those are not the people you want pissed off with you. Right? So you have to be kind and you have to be nice and you have to be, you do have to be assertive because at the end of the day, your job is to get things done for your constituents. But you cannot be, a donkey's behind.
Yeah. Relationship building is key.
It is.
And I always say this to my students and I live by it. You never know who's going to be your friend when you need one. Right?
That is true. That is true. And you never know, too, the people that you help, how impactful it may seem like a small thing, like a phone call to you or just asking somebody, hey, can you help this person? And then them following through. It's a big deal to that person. And you just never know when that will come back to be a blessing to you or to your career or to you in politics or whatever.
You're exactly right. And also the opposite.
That is so true. That is so true.
You never know.
Yep.
But it's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. You're listening now to Delegate Angela Williams-Grace that is here. She's talking with us about what's going on what happened in the legislature and her take, her assessment, and a look at the bills that she championed, where they were in the process, and what's at the very end, we're going to talk about what's up coming up in later 2023 with her, but representing the 90th district. All right, so let's get right into your bills. You've had quite a few, but I want you to pick out several and let us know where they are, what took place, and what was really behind the idea of introducing those bills.
Cool beans. So one of the bills that I'm most excited about that passed was House Bill 2317, and that was our bill to increase jury duty pay. I introduced that bill last year, and it died in appropriations. So here's the thing. Once you get through subcommittee, then you get through committee. If it's got money attached to it, it's got to go to appropriations. And so appropriations said, And so that's the end of that bill. So this year we got out of appropriations, not with as much money as I would like to have had, which was $100, but we got $50. And so Senator Spruill championed the Senate side bill, and I championed the House side bill, and we got $50. That is off to the governor for him to sign so that people don't go into the hole doing their civic duty by serving on jury duty. But the jury duty pay has not been increased in 30 years.
And what was the pay before that?
It was $30. And before that, it was $20. It was $20 in 1993, and it went to $30. And so, I mean, but here's a quick snapshot.
And listen, audience, that's not per hour.
No.
That's per day.
Per day. Per day. So you think about that, and you also think about the fact that citizens cannot take their phones into the courthouse. So you lose all productivity all day long waiting to be called for a jury. And then if you're on a jury, you can't do anything anyway.
You know, quick funny story. Well, not funny story, but it's a teaching story.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually learned how to pick jurors. It's called voir dire.
Okay.
In law, in trial. I learned how to pick jurors because at the top of the governmental building where I worked, that was where they had the sandwich shop. So I used to go up there, and Miss Jackson used to cook the baked BLTs, a little greasy bacon with, mayonnaise, thick mayonnaise, and of course tomato and lettuce. It was like $1.25 at the time. So
it's a minute ago.
It was a minute ago. But it was good. It was good. I think they would have like $2 for I left. But anyway, so that's where they sequestered the jury pool.
Okay.
So every day I would go out there and get my BLT and whatever else I was eating at the time. I would notice like people. Mm-hmm. And how they interact, right? So you learn, it's all about just behavior and so forth. Mm-hmm. So you pick up, that from human behavior and how do they operate on jurors from there. But I do remember that. So, and I remember them waiting, just sitting there. For 8 hours.
Yep.
And they may not get paid. So hats off to you. Governor, please sign that bill.
Please sign the bill.
Next bill.
The other bill that we passed that I was really, hang on one second here, that I was really excited about was actually a bill that took medical debt off the list of necessities.
All right.
So medical debt for people who are married and you may have had a spouse, not a loved one, but a spouse in the hospital. If that spouse dies in the hospital, that surviving spouse can be held responsible if their estate doesn't have enough money to pay for their medical bills. That surviving spouse can be sued by the hospital. So I thought that was very interesting because a lot of people buy life insurance policies. They buy it to be buried, and there might be $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 left over as like a little nest egg. Not necessarily the folks who buy $100, $200, $300, $500,000 policies. But if you bought this and your spouse had like $10,000 or $15,000 left, and now here comes the hospital looking to sue your spouse for medical debt. I mean, I'm not going to say the hospital killed you, but they didn't really save you either. So now your loved one is dead, your spouse is dead, and now you have a bill. I just don't think that's fair. I really, really don't. And I understand hospitals and I understand, the need to pay medical debt. I'm not saying anybody should skate on that. But what I am saying is that when somebody is deceased, if their estate can't pay, then, they can wipe that debt out with, really without cause. It's not a big deal.
Very quickly, we talk about the reason why this bill is so important. Medical debt is the number one reason individuals file for bankruptcy. I mean, think about that. Medical debt.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know that. I was just in a conversation with someone who was a financial planner and was like, Virginia is one of the few states that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, wait a minute, say that again? And like my husband had just gotten out of hospital. So I'm like,
he got out.
Wait, he did get out. So another bill that I really liked that didn't pass passed. That one got killed. It was public and high school. It was House Bill 1644. It was public and high school, college and career counselor specialist. And so what this bill would have required is a college and career specialist in every high school. So we have our counselors, right? We have our school counselors, and Lord knows their list of stuff to do is getting longer by the minute, right? They're the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker in schools, right? And so this particular bill would have called for a career and college counselor, and that would be that individual's sole purpose, was to help young people identify colleges, help them identify scholarships, or help them identify apprenticeship programs or smaller, training programs if they're not ready to do 4-year college. If they're, there's a lot of folks who are like, you know what, I'm done. I'm so done. I got out of college. I got out of high school and I'm so done. But I know that I didn't get everything in high school that I need in order to be able to support myself in terms of training. And so this bill would have helped that move along. I thought it was a great bill. The Republicans didn't think it was a great bill. So we lost it. One of the other ones that I lost was the purchasing of firearms demonstrating competency. That was House Bill 2407. That bill required that you get a training course before you go buy a gun.
That's it?
That's it. As it stands right now, I, who have never handled a weapon, she who has never handled a weapon, can go to the gun store and buy a gun, pay for it, get it all in a little box, and then just walk out the store. No training, no safety course, no nothing.
Wow.
I just don't think, I think that's negligible, to be honest with you. My argument is twofold. One, cars are deadly weapons. When they're used properly, they're a good method of transportation, right? But used improperly or behind the wrong, in the wrong hands, they can be deadly weapons, Absolutely. Right? So we are not going to send somebody out with a vehicle and not train them on how to use it.
Yeah. And they take driver's ed.
And they take driver's ed, and they demonstrate competency. The other argument to that is people say, well, gun ownership is a right. It's the Second Amendment. It's this, it's that, it's the other. Okay, great. I'm cool with you with that. But here's the thing. So is voting. Right. So is voting. Voting is a right that is enshrined in the Constitution. And folks are trying to put all kinds of restrictions and parameters and all of this on voting rights, which are in the same Constitution with gun rights. So we can't have this free-for-all on gun rights, but then we want to put all these restrictions and parameters on voting rights. So, you can't have it both ways.
So let's unpack that just for a quick moment.
Mm-hmm.
The fight against voting rights. Of course, we've seen it in the news. We've seen the fights that are taking place. Your assessment, why is that such a major issue for the other side?
I liken it to something I've seen on social media. If it wasn't valuable, nobody'd be trying to take it.
There you go.
If it wasn't powerful, nobody would be trying to take it. If you walk past just a rag in the street, you're just going to keep on moving. But if you walk past a mink coat, you going to turn around. Absolutely. And so that's really, it is to have people to vote is powerful, and people don't understand their power with voting. I remember when Councilwoman Mamie Johnson won her very first election, and if memory serves me correctly, she won by 38 votes.
Wow.
38 more people got up and went and voted for her than the other people who were on the ballot. So that is a major, it's powerful. And so that's the reason why, come on. So I'm going to buy somebody's vote with a bottle of water or a slice of pizza. Or why can't people vote during the week, like early voting? We have 45-day early voting to give people the opportunity to vote. When it's convenient for them, because everybody doesn't work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday kind of job. Everybody's not a business owner. They're not their own bosses, all that kind of stuff. So exactly. So why? You take police officers. they can't just up and leave and go vote. I mean, they can go early or they can go late. But I mean, you take folks who work 12-hour shifts, they can't just up and leave. And so it's very important. And that's the reason why there's the fight.
Absolutely. So right now, we've got those bills. Sine die. The session is ended. What's called the short session.
Which seemed like the long session.
Those are some long days.
Woo, child.
Trying to pack everything in. Right?
It starts early and it goes late. They're long session. Absolutely. This long day.
So we've got that. There's going to be a reconvene session, and that's where all the legislators come back. Everything that was in conference now comes back to the floor. You vote on it. It passes or it fails. Goes to the governor.
Not quite in that order. So everything, all of our business had to be finished by Saturday when we adjourned sine die. All the conference reports, if they were not accepted by sine die on Saturday, they just died, right? So what reconvene is more of is the veto session. So the governor has options. He can sign the bill, he can veto the bill, or he can make amendments to the bill, okay, and send it back. So if he vetoes the bill, you have to have, I want to say it's 65% of the vote to override the veto. If he sends it back with amendments, then you have the opportunity to either accept or reject the amendments. If you reject the amendments, then I'm almost certain that the bill dies, if I'm not mistaken. If you accept the amendments, then the bill will go on and it'll pass with his blessing. So we have veto, but we also have the possibility of a special session as well for the budget, because we passed a few items to keep the government going.
Stopgaps.
Yes. And so we still have several $1 billion that we are apart, at least $1 billion that we're and so there are conferees there, right? So if you look at the Senate, who's democratically controlled, the majority of the conferees on the budget are Democrats. You look at the House side, that's Republican controlled, the majority of the conferees on the budget are Republicans. So it's not a kumbaya moment.
That's right.
It's not.
Once again, it's a complex system. You learn it. Like I tell all new legislators, I congratulate them and I say, listen, take the first session to learn where the bathroom is and how to get back to your office.
Learn where the paper clips are buried.
If you could do that, it was a successful first session. But you're definitely a veteran and you're doing a phenomenal job fighting for your district and all that you're doing.
Thank you. Oh, but hold up. There's a bill for Norfolk State.
There is a bill for Norfolk State?
There is a bill, but there's more. There is a bill that I had the privilege of co-patroning, being a chief co-patron with a Republican House of Delegates member that will allow Norfolk State some discretion, Norfolk State and Virginia State, some discretion in their tuition as far as out-of-state tuition and in-state tuition in certain majors. So that is great because it allows Norfolk State and Virginia State to be more competitive. So the funny part about this bill was it passed the House, went over to the Senate, then everybody wanted to get in on it. And we were like, this is one of those kumbaya moments with the Republicans, right? Me and the patron, we were like, nah, let them get their own bill. Because he graduated from Virginia State and he is not a minority. And he graduated from Virginia State. So he was like, no, I'm going to take care of Virginia State. You take care of Norfolk State. This is what we're going to do. Is that a deal? I was like, that's a deal. And so we were able to we rejected the Senate amendments to add everybody.
Absolutely.
And we were able to get that bill passed for Norfolk State and Virginia State. So it's with the governor. It's with the governor, too.
That's right. So he's going to sign that one. So we believe it. Again, you just talked about a bill that, again, that's where we had those conversations. You go from the third floor to the fourth floor to the sixth floor, it changes. You got to go back again. But that's why we love it. That's why we do it. In our last 30 seconds, we got something coming up at the end of this year in November.
Yeah.
So are you going to announce something here on the show?
Well, actually, we have something coming up before November. We have a primary. Yeah. We have the 21st Senate District race the primary for the Democratic nominee is going to be on June 20th, and I am running for the 21st Senate District. This is an all-Norfolk district. It has no part of any other city other than Norfolk in it. We have not had that since before Yvonne Miller was in the great Yvonne Miller was in the General Assembly. And so it is really important that people come out and vote in the primary election, because folks are counting on us not to come out and vote. And this is a majority minority district. It absolutely is. And so folks can come out on June 20th. Early voting starts on May 5th for that. So you'll be able to vote at City Hall starting on May 5th. And I just encourage people to come out and vote. I encourage you to follow me on social media at AWG Norfolk. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as AWG Norfolk, and on Instagram as AWG_Norfolk. And you can also go to my website, AngelaWilliamsGraves.com, and find out more about the campaign and volunteer.
Well, you heard it here first, here on Stay the Water. Delegate, soon to be senator.
Thank
She's
you.
running for the new 21st district, Senate district, and all the districts are new. So she is throwing her hat into this race.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
To have the conversation about redistricting and what that means. And I'm willing to have a generic conversation with you about it.
Well, we're actually going to have that conversation here on this show at the end of this month.
Great.
So you're right. Listen, we're going to bring you back. But
Great.
Once again, we always love to have our champions for policy in the community here on the show, live in studio, and you're definitely that. And we'll be back next week as we continue to break down what took place in Richmond and what's in store for you coming up. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Claville. As always, be great, do great things, and God bless. We'll see you next week.